Hey folks, it's Brian Howard, and here we are with another edition of Living in Calgary, my hobby. I really enjoy this, getting to connect with great people like Michael Ulmer. Am I saying your last name correctly, Michael?
It's pretty close, Brian. It's Alameyer.
Almeyer.
Like, don't mire yourself in the mess.
So Michael is a former chef of Bishop's Restaurant in Vancouver, Mission Hill Family Estate in the Okanagan, and Teatro here in Calgary. I have a story about my last anniversary supper at Teatro for you later on, Michael. Currently,
Awesome.
Michael
Can't
is
wait.
a culinary educator at SAIT and is one of 5 Master Chefs in Canada. Michael, great to have you on the show.
Happy to be here. Thank you very much.
And I was referred to you, Michael, from our mutual friend, James Kendall, who we both know from the cycling community. James said, hey, you should have Michael on the show. And I said, darn right, I will. I read your background a little bit and so happy to connect with you here today after a week of kind of chasing you down.
Absolute pleasure. It really shows what a small city and what a small community we are. I mean, James and I have known each other for years from the Okanagan, and yeah, we have a lot of common ground for sure.
That's great. Michael, maybe just kind of touch base on sort of your Calgary story a little bit and your work as a chef here, chefing in our city and an educator at SAIT. How did you happen to come to live in Calgary?
Well, you know what's interesting is I've actually moved to Calgary twice. So this is my second time that I've actually resided in Calgary. And what's interesting is both times Calgary attracted us just because we always found it to be a great city to raise a family. So we have 2 boys. They're quite a bit older now, but in 1998 I had an opportunity to come aboard and head up the kitchens at Teatro. And at the time we were living in BC, and my wife and I, were kind of looking for a new environment, a younger city, a place where a young family could start out. And Calgary, 1998, we want to rewind then, it was a very different city. It was smaller. Housing was a lot more affordable. And honestly, that was a big factor. Like, we were in our early 30s, and we had the concept of being able to afford a house to raise a family. That was really, really appealing. And then I was super excited with what was happening at Teatro as well. And I just saw great potential in the restaurant. So it really checked a lot of boxes and had fun at Teatro. I really did. But my time was over and it was time to move on. And, the life of a chef means that you need to travel. In order for your career to really have some depth and be quite successful, traveling is almost a prerequisite. So I've always kind of followed the great opportunities, and we had an opportunity to move to the Okanagan, and it was on my bucket list of career objectives to work in a winery. Food and wine is a very, very big part of who I am. And I really wanted that experience to work in a winery, work around wines, work with a winemaking team. And I mean, you look at the Okanagan with its bounty of ingredients, it was a very, very easy decision when that opportunity presented itself. So we went to the Okanagan, and then
And roughly what year was that you went to the Okanagan?
Oh, so we moved to the Okanagan. That would have been 2003.
Okay.
And 2003 to 2009, I was the chef at Mission Hill Winery. And if you've ever been to that winery, it's a stunning winery. It really is. Not only are the wines world class, but the sense of hospitality is like world class as well. And there's so many different options for the guests to kind of experience wine country there. To me, it was probably one of the proudest accomplishments of my career, is being part of that team. And we did so much. Every vintage, every new year that we grew the F&B program, and it was just stunning. We never rested on our laurels, and it was just an exciting time to build and grow. But as all good things do come to an end, and I was in my mid 40s and feeling a career of working 80 to 100 hours a week, my knees, my back, everything else. And I was like, there's got to be a smarter way to do this, right? And I need to start working with my mind more and my body less, is the reality. And plus, I needed to invest in my kids as well. It's a demanding career as far as your time goes. And I was really not being a great dad, because I was always slave to the kitchen. And when the opportunity at SAIT presented itself, it was a slam dunk, because we got to return to a community, a city that we knew and we loved. We had lots of great friends. It just checked a lot of really great boxes. It was still a young city, a vibrant city, still a great environment to raise a family in. And honestly, I think the decision to get into education and use all of my experience, which my career has given me, has been one of the best decisions ever. And obviously it brought us back to Calgary. It was like, coming home again. And I kind of broke my cardinal rule. And my cardinal rule in life was like, you never go back to a place, right? And Calgary had enough appeal and enough great things to draw us back again. And it's, it truly feels like our home.
And was that around 2009-10 that you came back?
Yeah, it would have been, I remember the day very, very vividly still. August 4th, 2009 is when I started.
Wow.
At SAIT. So we did a summer move. And
so as a realtor, I can't help but think like, okay, 2009, the market in Calgary in 2006 and 7 went crazy ballistic. And then it crashed in October 2008, like it did around the world. And then 2009, it was back low again. So where did you move to in Calgary? Where did you settle? What community? Are you still in the same place?
This is, what's interesting? We have owned 3 homes in Calgary. In 1998, we bought a house in Hidden Valley. Now that neighborhood was completely different from what you see nowadays. The city has expanded a lot. And then it was a little too new for us. So we wanted a bit more of an established neighborhood, and we moved down to the south, to Southwood. And
that's
we got
an
a
unusual move.
Yeah, well, it's a young family, and we just wanted more of an established neighborhood, older trees, right? And we really enjoyed our time in Southwood. It was a short walk to the reservoir, and it was.
And what year was that you roughly went to?
That would have been 2000. So we weren't in Hidden Valley for very long, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And then Southwood, we loved. It was just a great established older neighborhood, loved the trees, and just loved that neighborhood. And then when we moved back to Calgary in 2009, we live in Valley Ridge, and so completely different neighborhood once again. But we had a lot of purpose. First of all, a lot of our friends that we were moving back into this community kind of lived in this part of the town. So it was nice having that kind of moving back, so you can kind of just almost like pick up and resume your life where you left off without having to do tons of commuting. One of the best things I love about living in Valley Ridge, and I probably shouldn't share this with people,
is the access to the mountains.
Well, most people don't know it. Well, close. That definitely is one of them. But
the climbing gym.
We're 20 minutes from downtown.
Yeah.
Right. And it's awesome. But you're right. That brand new climbing gym in our backyard is amazing, but it's access to the mountains as well. And when I'm not working, I like to spend as much time as I can in the mountains, whether I'm cross-country skiing in the winter, whether I'm climbing in the summer, paddling, or just, multi-day backcountry trips. This last summer, we did 5 days, 4 nights on the Great Divide Trail. And that was an epic adventure. Basically, 5 days traveling on the Continental Divide from Waddington Park up to Castle Ski Resort, wilderness camping the whole way. And so that's what I love to do when I'm not working, is spending time in the mountains. So literally living 50 minutes from Canmore is not a bad thing, actually. I love it. I get to circumnavigate all that city traffic.
You mentioned we were hoping to maybe do the show for Sunday, I think this past Sunday, and you mentioned climbing, and you mentioned your family and kids. Mm-hmm. Are your boys still with you? Are they climbing? I assume they're in their 20s or this.
100. So the youngest, the baby, is now 17 and in grade 12 high school. He's the climber. The older one, Colin, he's at U of C. He's studying Asian languages, and he's tried climbing. It's not his jam. The heights and the exposure, and I get it. It's not for everyone. It's something you truly need to be comfortable with. But Lachlan, it would have been probably grade 9 for his PE class. The climbing gym right across from Valley Ridge had opened up, and his PE class went, and he came back just like vibrating. He just like, I love climbing. It's awesome. And I was like, well, I don't know if you know this about your dad, but when I lived in Vancouver, I was in my 20s. I was an avid climber. So when I wasn't in the kitchens at Bishop's, you'd find me in Squamish hanging off of the Chief or the Apron, or in Smoke Bluffs, or, you know, wherever. You know, there's just, to me, Squamish is ground zero for Canadian climbing. It is by far, it's world's class caliber. So it was really great. I thought my days of climbing were done, and here I am in my 50s picking it up again, and I've never been as happy. And just being able to do it with Lachlan and my wife Meredith, she climbs as well. So when we can climb together, it's awesome. And we've put together a cohort of friends that are into it as well. And we've got a rich community in that area.
Cool. Let me ask you, Michael, what strikes you about living in Calgary, or about Calgary in general? Anything come to mind?
I think the fact that it's a young city. It's a young city, and it's a diverse city. I think, like us, we're not the first people to realize that, hey, this is a great place to raise a family. And for me, it's family values. There's access to so many activities, great schools. You know, we've got such diversity in the province. About, you know, we've got prairies, we've got like great agriculture, we've got the mountains. There's just so much to do. There's so many activities to run your boys. In my case, right, I've got 2 boys, and, you know, boys need to be run because they have all this energy, and they're going to use it for good or they're going to use it for bad, right? So it's best to keep them busy, and we've got those resources here. So I think that was a big attraction to come back to Calgary.
Cool. This is kind of a little off topic, but fun nonetheless, this sort of question. You mentioned your oldest boy is studying, I think, Asian languages at U of C.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
A guy like yourself, maybe I'm going to say a pragmatist, if I know what that word means, from South Africa originally, who just choose a skill such as, you know, becoming a chef, where for sure you're going to have work all your life. Are you accepting of your son's choice of studies in Asian studies? Like, what will he do with that?
You know what?
This is a fun question.
No, for sure. Well, first and foremost, 100% agree. So Colin has always had a huge interest in manga and anime and things like that. And he came to us in grade 11, and he was like, I want to learn how to speak Japanese. And we're like, sure, why not? So CBE has a night school program, and there's a Japanese language school at a local high school. And so he started, like, you know, taking Japanese lessons in night school. And we've learned at an early age he's got a bit of a gift for languages. Like, we've taken him to Europe a couple times, and when he's over there, he was picking up languages very, very quickly. And, you know, he, like most young people, had no idea what he wanted to do with his life. So when he came to us and said that, you know, there was this Japanese language program at U of C, basically he would get a Bachelor of Arts in Asian Language Studies, we were like, you know what, investment in languages is not a waste of time. And you know what, I've been fortunate that I've been raised on 3 continents, so I see the value in languages. And, you know, I think the most important thing as a parent is to support your children, and if they're passionate about something, they're going to do well in it. And, you know, I don't have an answer as to what he's going to do with it, but I know, I look at the economy and I look at the way the world is going, and it seems like economically a lot of stuff's shifting towards Asia. So any type of investment in Asian culture, to me, I see as a plus for his generation. And I think the goal for him is, he's going to be wrapping up this academic year, is he wants to go to Japan, and they've got something called the JET program, where it's, you go to Japan and you teach English. It's a great program. It's a 2-year commitment. They bill it to you. They put you in rural Japan somewhere, and you're fully immersed in that program. So if this is what he's going to do, that's a critical step to his success, I think, is to go and get that immersion and then see where it takes him. You know, is the reality, kind of see where the opportunities, and quite frankly, the way the world is right now, I think you kind of take it day by day as well, right?
Exactly. Talking about the way the world is right now, and you just spending your day, you know, as a educator at SAIT in culinary, it sounds like you were doing Zoom meetings quite a bit of the day. And having 2 boys, one in high school these last couple of years and one finishing university this year, what's really easy for you these days, and what's hard in terms of just anything in general?
Yeah, no. Well, you know what? The reality is everything seems hard.
Does it?
Well, yeah, yes and no, right? What's easy is making sure I find time to invest in myself. Right. That's been a very hard lesson for me, being so driven in my career and working all those crazy hours. I mean, the reality is for my first 25 years in industry, the norm was 80 hours a week. That's kind of what a chef does. And in order for you to be successful, that's almost what you need to do to invest in your career that way, if you're going to run at the level which I was running in, right? Now, what I love about that is I've got a great ROI on that, because I've been able to evolve all of that experience into a secondary career of education. And now I get the privilege and the responsibility of educating the next generation, which is amazing. And one of my driving mantras is knowledge is like wealth. You can't take it with you, so it's best to share it. And so now I have this balance in my life, which I never had before. So it's easy for me to invest in myself, right? It's easy because if I'm better, then I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, I'm a better friend, and I can be better overall, right? So finding that balance of investing in my health and my fitness and spending time with people I want to spend time with is important. All right. What's hard these days is just uncertainty. Let's be honest, there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty out there. And, like my wife and I, we love traveling, and our boys are at the age now where we can be a little bit more independent. And we've had some great adventures with them. But one of our values is traveling, and we haven't done a big trip since 2019, right? May 2019, and we went to Scotland, and we're hoping that we can maybe get a trip to Portugal next year. That's kind of our next place we want to go. But can we? There's just so much uncertainty, right? I mean, especially with these new variants, and so staying positive is the work. It really is, right? So you break it down into manageable pieces, and it's day by day, right? You always obviously have a vision and your eye on the future, but you got to be fluid.
I assume you came with your parents from South Africa to Canada. Is that right? Roughly like in the 90s?
We didn't directly come to Canada. So we actually left. So a little bit of background history. My father was German, my mother was English, and they were both down there working. And my mom tends to be very active in social equality, for lack of a better term. And we left South Africa in 78. It was kind of shortly after the Soweto incident. It was a very violent, bloody incident, and it just wasn't good. And my mom was like, you know what, this is no place to raise kids with these values.
You were 10, maybe?
So I would exactly. Yep, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we had an opportunity to leave South Africa and go to Hong Kong. My father's work transferred him to Asia, and we lived in Hong Kong for 2 years before immigrating to Canada in 1980 and to Toronto, and spent 2 years in Toronto, and then moved to Winnipeg to finish high school. And I did my apprenticeship in Winnipeg, of all places. So quite a bit of traveling: Johannesburg, Hong Kong, Toronto, Winnipeg. And all that traveling around the world really kind of showed me that I enjoyed seeing the world. And also it was the 80s. We got out of a really rough recession back then, and there was a lot of unemployment, and culinary people need to eat. It seemed like something that was fairly recession proof, and it also would help with my wanderlust, my ability, my desire to travel and see the world. So it checked a lot of boxes, and I just knew that I wasn't destined to head off to university. It just wasn't who I am, being more of a visual, tactile person at heart, right?
Neat. That sort of winds me back into in this podcast. I joke a lot about, with Calgarians, like I kind of like to find out where they're living in the city, mostly if they're living in the north or the south. And I joke often that once you choose one of those areas, you're not allowed to move anywhere else. Like the Bow River, not north or south, you're not allowed to mix. And so you're very unusual as a Calgarian who, you're not a native Calgarian, but you have lived in these three very, very different communities: Hidden Valley, Southwood, and now Valley Ridge. I mean, Valley Ridge to me is almost like a secret of Calgary. Not many people really.
And we want to keep it that way, right?
We won't tell anyone. Can you comment a little bit on your time in the city and like the truth or lack of truth of that? Like, as you meet Calgarians or people in the city, they tend to stay. If they land in the north, they tend to stay there. If they land in the south, they tend to stay there. Any comment on that?
Yeah, you know what? You hit it spot on. And it's funny, we've got quite a few friends in the south. and they're always like, oh, we got to trek up to the north. And
To
our big
visit you
joke
or
is like,
something, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So our big joke is, yep, we live north of the wall, right? So it's kind of
Right.
like a little Game of Thrones kind of reference there, and it's like this big trek, and honestly, it isn't that big of a deal. What I do find, and in all of my time in Calgary, especially coming back, I noticed that the city has grown, and there is a lot more congestion. And the reality is, it is tougher getting, from the north to the south. That's why we're super excited about that last section of the ring road being put in, and it's literally being built outside of Valley Ridge as we speak. And when that connection is done, I think getting down to the south, it's going to open up the city, and it's going to open up the area, I think, in ways that we can't even imagine, right? And I think it's about 20 years late, but I'm really, really happy that piece of infrastructure is going in, because I think it's going to make the city much smaller and much easier to get around.
Interesting. Maybe just a comment. You said earlier on that how you like Valley Ridge because of the it's only 20 minutes to downtown, but isn't anywhere from Calgary 20 minutes from anywhere? That's kind of my experience. But anyway, don't even bother commenting on that. What about the boom bust economy of Calgary? How does that affect you and the people around you? And do you save for a rainy day?
Well, first and foremost, always, a core fundamental for me is you always pay yourself first. And I always do believe in saving for a rainy day, 100%. And you know what? The boom bust is tough, especially in my work. You think about the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry, and we're a barometer of whether things are good in the city or not, right? And I mean, when things are booming and people are like, ordering, $1,000 bottles of wine and, big entrees, life is great. Although as a restaurateur, it's brutal because you can't find any staff, because the pickings are so good and the opportunities are so good. So you really need to treat your people well and really create an environment people want to come in. And then, it's like almost the polar opposite. You've got to work twice as hard when things turn around. And it's interesting because you see how the menus change when things downturn, right? All of a sudden you have, less rack of lamb and less venison and less ribeyes, and there's more braised dishes, right? Instead of rack of lamb on the menu, it's like, it's a braised shank of lamb instead, right? So it's a better contribution for the business. It's a better menu price for the guest as well. And I think restaurants are great barometers, as I mentioned, about the state of the economy. And you can tell almost by looking at the menu how good the economy is. If you see a lot of braised dishes, if you see things like meatballs, you know that maybe the city's having a bit of a tougher time. And if it's all filet mignon and ribeyes, things are rolling well, right?
Interesting. Today's December 1st. And so I was doing a little update on Calgary stats today, a little sort of video and, what's going on in the market. And so currently, just FYI, there was more sales in November, like the past 30 days. The last time there was as many sales was in November of 2005. And I've been talking for the past month or two about, I feel like we're in this point in Calgary or in Alberta even of 2004, 2005, when prices were sort of low and then all of a sudden it boomed. And the reason why I say that is because in Canada this year, prices in Canada have gone up 18%. Like we're talking average prices all over this country. Meanwhile, in Alberta, it's only 3.5%. Are you, in terms of barometer of reading the market, do you have any thoughts on what might happen to Calgary in the next 1 year, 5 years?
Oh, you know what? That's I'm not really an economist. I don't know if I am.
You're watching them for meatballs or braised.
You know what? For me, I think, kind of just with my experience of things, I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and markets don't like uncertainty, right? We're kind of, I think, as a province, we're at a tipping point. We've always been known for our ability to produce energy, and the reality is energy has really driven our economy for the longest time. And there's a lot of uncertainty is the reality about the energy sector. Where is it going? It has to evolve is the reality. If you look at the international news and the way the world is going, we have to evolve, right? And I think the sooner Alberta can diversify and kind of balance out our economy a little bit more, so we're not on these boom and bust cycles, I think that is going to help a lot. And this is just my opinion, right? And I think that is maybe we're in this transition area, and with that is uncertainty, and I think it's reflecting in the markets as such, right? But it's interesting hearing that stats are good, and there's movement and things are happening. I think with all the lockdowns and all the restrictions we've had, people are really being a lot more introspective, and they're looking at their environments a lot more, and we've probably never spent as much time in our homes as we have in the last 2 years. There's less traveling, there's less socializing, there's less going out. So all of a sudden, your home is truly your castle, and it's what protects you and saves your sanity.
Yeah.
And so if it isn't perfect, I think people are making those moves, right? And the reality is, people, if your employment hasn't been affected, you're probably a little bit more cash plus because you're not spending as much. So you can maybe invest a little bit more in your residence at the end of the day, right?
Nice. Yeah.
That's just me. That's a cook's perspective.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And it's a fine perspective. Michael, sort of a pointed question. Why are you staying in Calgary, or why are you not staying in Calgary? Your boys are coming to, be in their 20s, or still you have a 17-year-old. So maybe the decision isn't there yet. But any thoughts? Will you stay in Calgary, or are you bolting as soon as this son graduates?
That's a very interesting question, because the address I've had, so we've been in this house since 2009.
That's a long time for you.
Well, this is the longest address I've ever had in my life. All right. I've had 27 addresses on 3 continents. All right.
Wow.
So I've moved a lot. And in fact, I think it was year 6 in this house became the longest residence I've ever had in my life, is the reality.
Wow.
So this is as stable as I've ever been in my life. And you know what, quite frankly, I kind of like it. When you're young, you've got lots of energy. I was always about, let's go here, let's go there. I always liked the adventure of moving and the discovery of that adventure. But the reality is, we are pretty settled here. We've got a great network of friends. We are mountain people. There's a lot of great reasons to stay where we are. And you know what, the opportunities at SAIT are amazing. SAIT's been very good to me. They really were behind me when I decided to go down the Master Chef road, and they were very, very supportive in that endeavor, because that was arguably one of the hardest things I've done. It was a 4-year commitment, 11 exams to get through, and I think I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I don't think I'm going to find what I'm doing elsewhere, if that makes sense. So there's still great opportunities, and my life is still rich. And as long as I've got that richness in my life, I'm here.
It sounds like you've lived a great, rich life. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, don't sweat the small stuff. Honestly, I tend to be a natural worrier. I tend to worry about a lot of things, especially all the small stuff. And it's not worth it. It's not worth your mental health at the end of the day. And I would have also told myself to invest in Calgary at a much younger age as well.
Oh, really interesting. Good.
I look at what we paid for our first house in Hidden Valley compared to what's happening in Valley Ridge, and it's been kind of crazy what Calgary's been through. I mean, you're no stranger to that, right?
Exactly. Well, very good. I can't help it. I just want to say, Michael, you say don't sweat the small stuff. Do you think you'd be in the place you are at right now without having sweated the small stuff for so many years? I can't help but be skeptic on that. I should take the same.
Yeah, and I think it's a double-edged sword, because because it's that same anxiety that drives you as well.
Yes,
because it's
there's lack of satisfaction that drives us or push us. Where's the balance? I suppose.
Yeah, I agree, and it's because it's attention to detail, right?
Yeah.
So it's something I always share with my students. The difference between good and great will always be the details. Right,
like 2%, just 2% extra.
100%. And I think the fact that I do sweat the details, I think that's obviously what's helped drive your career, rich life as well. Yeah. No, 100%.
Good. Michael, thanks so much for being on the show. If people wanted to reach out in any way, what is the best way? I found you on Instagram myself, but what are some of the good ways for people to follow or reach out?
Yeah, you know what? Instagram is definitely the most accessible way. Chef Meyer. That's also my same handle on Twitter as well. Those are kind of my two big social media platforms. Both are quite different. And obviously on Instagram, it's about sharing my passions, and that's food and the outdoors. Those are the two things that I love to do. And so that's always a great way to go. Chef Meyer.
Great. Well, we'll provide links in the show notes. Thanks so much again for being on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for the time.